Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eddie Marcus once again, and I'm so glad to be before you making this post and hoping that you will observe it, because I'm sure that it will be some good information here that will help all of us. And even if you don't feel like it at this moment, then maybe you'll come back to it at a later moment and be fed just as well. You know, these Sunday mornings are the days that you get a chance to hear a bunch of politics. And it doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on, you get a chance to hear a full dose of it. Except you only like that side that represents you. And we understand that. When we talk about politics, Republicans and Democrats specifically, you're not going to find too much that a Republican says that the Democrats are going to embrace. You're not going to find that much that the Democrats are going to say that the Republicans are going to embrace. And that's a natural fact. And you look at that and you wonder the conditions of our society, and we say, how can we fix this? What can be done about that? And as I look at it, as I have been engaged in it for quite some time, ladies and gentlemen, I don't see the problem as being the politicians. I see the problem as being the people. And the politicians only reflect the people. And what I understand in the failure of the people are those who are getting their message to help develop them, grow them into a full-grown child of understanding and purpose and compassion and love. That doesn't come from politics. That comes from an understanding about life. And one of those initiatives that is designed to deal with this is the church. And so what I see the people failing politics, and I see the church failing people. And as a consequence, everybody is guilty. To me, that's just my perspective. Everyone is guilty. And let me see if I can give you an analogy that will address that. Let's think about a bodybuilder. You want big, strong arms, and you want muscles. You want to be this dynamic figure that represents power. And a lot of guys really go to the extreme, and they represent that muscular power. For what good, I don't know. I'm not there. But they know. And for those who are impressed, you know. But when you look at a Republican, and they got a point of view, to those Republicans, that is wonderful. It's absolutely essential now. But that Republican represents one arm. You do look at the Democrats, and they got a perspective about this. It is solid, and they love it. And it is something that's dynamic. And they love it. But it's just the left arm. Or vice versa. It doesn't matter which arm it represents, but it's a separate arm. So you can do all the muscling you want to with one arm. And you can have a big, strong muscle on that one arm. Or you can decide that you want to use that other arm. And you want to work it out. Working it out. Working it out. And you can build up muscles on that arm. On that arm. But if you want to build a strong body, a balance, you're going to have to work both arms together. So you're going to have to put your hands, your left hand and your right hand, around a barbell that has weight on each side, adequate weight on each side. It's going to have the opinions of the right hand on the one side, the opinions on the left hand on one side, and they are different, but they both carry the same weight. And that hand is going to grip that barbell, and it's going to start lifting and practicing that lift. And it's going to take both of those hands working together, lifting that weight. Together, lifting that weight. That determines the kind of strength, the kind of development that you're going to get from the process of bodybuilding, especially when it comes to that part that deals with weightlifting. No left hand alone is going to ever pick up a barbell with all that weight on it. No right hand alone is ever going to pick up a barbell with all that weight on it. No, my friends. And so a Republican's perspective is never going to be strong enough to carry across the spectrum of all people. Neither will the left hand be able to do it. It's going to take the indulgence of both hands wrapped around the concerns of that which is important to the people. Now, this is where it comes, as far as I'm concerned, is with the preachers. Now, a preacher is like that two hands that's going down on that barbell to make one conclusion. It's not on the side of the right or Republican or left or Democrats alone. It's out there to take care of that which works, because the left hand does not work. The right hand does not work sufficiently to do this. So the preacher, my friend, the preacher who tells you, guides you, instructs you based upon given information, revealed information, spiritual information, that enlightens your mind, opens up your capacity to understand and have compassion for all. That's the preacher's job. That's the preacher's job, ladies and gentlemen, is to share with you that which you didn't know. And apparently you have not received that information because you don't have that. So what am I saying? If the Republicans and Democrats are serious about the issues of the people, that means the people have got to be serious about the issues of the people. Let me give you an example. Let's say, let's use something kind of very significant. Let me start with health care. Let's say the Republicans got a concept that would adequately address the concerns of health care for all of the people. Let's say that, if you ask them, they already got proposals for it. They've had proposals for it ever since they've been in office. But what is their proposal? Does it address adequately the concerns of everybody that might need health care? Obviously not. That's why you got Democrats complaining. Okay, let's hold off on the Republicans and let's go to the Democratic side. What proposals have they offered or are offering that would address the concerns all across the spectrum, including everybody? None. They have never, and they don't at this time. So I ask this question to you, the American people. Is it Republicans? Is it Democrats? Or is it you, the people? You, the people, have been conditioned to accept the fact that it's okay to have health care for some and perhaps not adequate or even less health care for others. That's the condition of the people's mind. That's the condition of the people's mind. Now, is a preacher supposed to come over there and say, well, Republicans sound better, or it'll help a few more people? Or is the preacher supposed to go on the Democratic side and say the Democrats sound a little better, it'll help a little bit more people? Or are they supposed to express a guideline that works across the board for everybody? Now, that would not come from people who are moved by certain aspirations on either side, but a legitimacy that is designed by that which introduces the need for health care, the ability to deal with health care. Let's not stop there on health care because many of you got other issues. Let's look at education. Republicans got ideas about that. Democrats got ideas about that. And neither one addresses the concerns of the other. But it is you, the people, who should have the concern, and I'm sure you do. Every one of you want adequate health care without all that burden that comes, adequate education without all that burden that comes from it. Every last one of you want that. Now, being a Democrat can't deliver that. Being a Republican can't deliver that. And yet, when you look at the people, the pool of people, 300 million people who want health care, who want education, every last one of them. Republicans don't have an answer. Democrats don't have an answer. So what would the preachers say? How do you do this? Well, I'm sure they both have some mindset based upon that development and that indoctrination of society just by being a part of it. And it does not, my friends, as you would agree, have any openness for the preacher, because the preacher seems to be on one side or the other. But if you ask God, don't ask the preacher. If you ask God for the answer, what would God say? God would say, well, I have provided all of the resources outside of the human population that is needed to address the concerns of healthcare and education. That's what God would say. But God wouldn't stop there. He said, he would also say that I've made available the necessary education that would qualify individuals that are interested in this to be able to get that education. Not only that, there are any number of people who are sick who would require the benefit of this education. And so, how do God answer that? God says, open up the career, open up the job possibilities, open up those to the degree that every, my friend, career worker, a job holder, have a career or job that gives them the greatest satisfaction. Remove the restrictions for access to education. Remove that restrictions for jobs, and you will find out that you will have an abundance of individuals in healthcare, an abundance of individuals in education, that it would run smooth as silk. So now if God has it that simple, then why doesn't it happen that way? It doesn't happen that way because the outcome, the purpose of the existence of human beings according to God is not the same that human beings have for themselves. God is recreating himself in individuals by teaching them life, while individuals are being programmed by someone else who discounts God at all angles, and they're using what they call a source. I wish I could think of another word that would describe it beautifully for all of us, but right now I can't. What we are talking about is being better than somebody else, being more deserving than somebody else. So you try to set up a strategy that would pronounce this, would allow this to happen. Well, it happens well in money. It happens well in taking the resources that God has given to the world and claiming them as your own. And a preacher who was telling you about God would tell you that this thing about somebody is more important. There are no kings or queens or paupers here. There's no one on earth that's more special than another. What's happening in England, Elizabeth or the newborn baby, that baby's no more impressive than a ghetto baby. But humankind wants you to think different because they want to always appear and project to the human population that there are those that are superior. And usually the ones that are in power are the ones that's trying to project that. And because the people, because of the ignorance, they are not being trained by preachers, they're not being taught by preachers that are led by the Spirit of God, they get bought into these different camps. And that being the case, we have what we have today. So when we look at the political landscape today, and all of the talking and all of this masquerading, it doesn't mean anything positive. It's just more of the same. And I know each of you think that you're right, and to a certain degree you are, but on the other degrees you're wrong. You're dead wrong. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And men, let me just say one more thing to you guys. I've been living quite a long time, and I see the trick. You always want to hold yourself up as being a head. Let me tell you something. A head cannot do a darn thing without a body. And a body without a head ain't going nowhere. So is the head more important than the body? Or is the body more important than the head? Without each other, they ain't nothing. So it seems to me as if you can try to connect your neck to one part of your head and the other part of your body. Join them together, and you'll be surprised at what you can do. So, you know, I've been spending most of my time fussing because I grew up as a Democrat. And I must admit, it seems to me that Democrats seem to have a little bit more compassion than Republicans. That's just to me. And I'm sure on the other side, Republicans seem to have more compassion than Democrats. That's just to those that feel that way. But in reality, they are both insufficient. They are both negligent. They are both falling by the wayside and going no place. And it's going to take the Spirit of God, not a preacher. It's going to take a Spirit of God to deliver you. It's going to take the Spirit of God to bring you to that point. And so what I'm basically saying to everybody that hears my voice today is stop looking for somebody else to correct you. Stop looking for somebody else to give you the answer. There's no problem with listening. There's no problem with a Democrat really listening to a Republican. You might learn something. A Republican listening to a Democrat, you might learn something. One thing you can bet your life on, before you guys come together, you're going to start listening. So, having said that, I think this is a good moment to stop. I'm going to leave it there with you. I have no title just yet. It's just that this was on my mind because I saw a whole waste of time taking place on the news stations this morning. Just a bunch of talk. Same old talk. Somebody speculating, and nobody got the answer. Excuse me, I just wanted to laugh. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. Bye-bye.